So I want to kind of give you the lovely, what you just went through with investors before listing. Give me your 30-second elevator overview of Domo, and then we'll jump into some topics that I know are on the minds of these folks here.
Great, yeah, Domo is the one thing. I had a company before Domo called Omniture that I sold to Adobe, and it was public for 3 years. I was the youngest CEO of a public company, so running around with my head spinning, trying to figure out what we were doing. And the one thing that always frustrated me is trying to get all of the data about my business available to me and my other business managers. And so we had our CIO, and we constantly were tasking them with, can you please get all of our data, not just the online data that's digital, but can we connect all of it and have it available on my phone? And we weren't ever able to accomplish that as a company. So when I was done with Adobe, it was in the back of my head. And I'll never forget the CEO of Adobe one time. We were sitting in a meeting, and this is after he spent a couple $1 billion on my company. And he said, is there any way we can get a dashboard about how our website's doing? I was like, bro, you just spent $2 billion on my company. That's what we do. But it's so hard to integrate all that information, and it just seems really difficult, especially for the business managers. So we really started a company to be the CIO's best friend and help them manage all of that data in real time. We have customers that have over 1 trillion transactions. We do over 1 trillion transactions a day, and it's just a big, scalable, giant CIO and all the infrastructure in your pocket available on your phone.
And you say it's really hard, and I know the folks here kind of know the reasons why it's hard. It's unstructured, it's everywhere, you gotta get it in the right place. But I want to kind of take a little bit of a step back and say, to fix that problem, what's the kind of mindset that the folks in the CIO and the CTO role have to go into it saying, I need to address this in X fashion to be able to actually successfully use all of this information to get the answers and the insights that I'm trying to get out of it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've got customers that, we have the CEO of Target who uses our product, and they showed us that he uses it literally every single day. Sometimes, minimum of 3 times, sometimes up to 17 times a day. And every time he walks in a Target store, he pulls out his phone. It's location-centric. It shows him the data just for that Target store as of that hour, how it's performing compared to every other Target store. And it's bringing in point-of-sale data, inventory data, sales online. It's bringing everything in right there on his phone. And I think what's challenging is, historically, CIOs have had to go and organize the data, and then they get certain people that are allowed to query the data. Not everyone can come and query the data. It'd be a mess. So they certify certain people. And at Target, they had 1,200 people that were allowed to certify, that were certified to go in and query the data. And when we came along, now they have over 10,000 people that are in not the data, they're in the reports and the outputs of that data, and they're able to set up alerts. If anything changes by 1%, I want to get a text message in app. Click on it. So it's just like our consumer life, but for your business. Totally flattens the organization, and that's been fun to do that. We have a customer, L'Oreal. L'Oreal is the second largest advertiser in the world, and they'd been trying for years to just get their data, all their marketing data, and have it accessible more than once a quarter. They'd always had it once a quarter, and now with us, they have it available in real time. And again, it's hundreds of billions of rows of data that we're processing through in real time. So I heard one of my favorite things that I heard from a CIO. We had a CIO panel, and we brought in all these folks from the ex-CEOs, CIOs of Microsoft and AIG and British Petroleum and several others, and they said, we're not technical managers. We were asking questions, and they're like, hold on a second. We're not managers of technical things. We're business people. And when you recognize that, then you're speaking to us about, you're speaking our language about how do we save more money? How do we make more money? How do we enable the business? And it's fun to see how that has transformed over time, and so that's the language you have to speak to CIOs.
And those kind of broader business level questions that the folks in the C-suite are asking, I get those. But touching back to your Target example, if you're democratizing kind of who has access to the data and who's using it to kind of be better employees, That's a lot of questions to be answered.
Sure.
How do you take a solutions-driven approach when you're working with 10,000 employees that are accessing the data versus, the C-suite and maybe the 1,200 that were looking at it before?
Well, when you think about data, relative to every other space, every other process, every other application out there, it's the one that hasn't had a big cloud disruptor. It's the only one. Everything else has been disrupted by the cloud. And I know data in cloud. I know what it does. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And so I wonder, when I started this, I was wondering why. Why doesn't this work? Why isn't there a big cloud business that we all know that manages your data? And it's because it's so stinking hard. We get in just trying to, initially I was like, I just want to get a dashboard on my phone. Well, that's not, first you have to start with getting the data in. And we ended up building over 1,000 connectors. So think what MuleSoft did, but ours is all connected to the data warehouse and the engine that you want to put your data in. And some of our customers use us for that, and some of us just use us for the connectors. Some of them already connected to everything. We have a Fortune 50 company that had already connected everything, put it in a giant data warehouse, and they used us to not, because then when the people come in and they query it and they write a report, well, now they have to come back and write that report again next week, and the next week, and the next week. Or if there's any kind of tweak to it from the business manager, they've got to change it. I have a lady that runs a really big organization, retail organization, and she came in and said, I used to have to wait. She puts on back to school. I used to have to wait a year to get that information about what happened during those 2 weeks. And now for the first time I have it in real time, because now when she asks a question, her team implements it and it's done. It's set up. And so from that point forward, she's got real-time data on her phone. So it's a different mindset when you have all the data available in real time. Everyone's done a good job organizing it and mapping it and putting it together, and people can come in and query it. But if it's not all connected to this real-time network, then I had a conversation with some data scientists. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge with data science is the initial query. Someone has to have an idea, and then you have to go and say, okay, here's the idea, and it seems like a good enough idea. There's this threshold. It seems like a good enough idea, so why don't you go ahead and go query all that data and do whatever data scientists do. And
magic, do the magic.
Yeah, do the magic, and if you find a correlation and it's interesting, then come and show me, and we'll see if we can do something with it. Well, that's a huge barrier to entry for data science. And when all of your data is organized in real time, in one spot, with a system like what we've invested $900 million into this system. And so when you take this system and you wake up in the morning and it says, we found 8,000 correlations in your data last night. Now we're trying to use AI to figure out which one is the most interesting to show you. And it looks like here's the 10 that are the most interesting. Here's a really strong correlation we found between close rates of sales reps and time in seat. Is this interesting to you? Here's another piece of information we found out about retention of employees and use of the dental reimbursement, and that's a good indicator that they're about to bail. Is that an interesting correlation? And so having this data science, automating the data science is not possible unless all that data is available in real time. So I think that's the big trend that we're going to see is everyone's got all their data, but is it truly all connected? And that's what people like Cisco and Nike and Target and others are using us for.
So when you do think of this space, you're obviously very passionate about it. You've committed your next company, your next baby to it. Why isn't it bigger now? Why is the space not bigger now?
That's a great question. Did that feel like an insult to you guys? Because it felt like one to me. I was just curious.
No, but I sit in this seat and I talk to
not why
executives.
Are we big, not bigger?
Right.
Why is the space
not bigger? I talk to executives. It's the biggest thing. We have all of this opportunity. For sure. Why isn't it there? Like, I see the passion, I see the opportunity, I see the kind of high level pitch, but folks aren't spending as much as the opportunity is projected to be.
Yeah, I mean, we've been growing 30+%. I'd love to see us grow 60, 70%. My last business was growing 100% when we went public. And I think this space is just a lot more complicated. There has not been the tipping point. We show people what we're doing. Those CIOs that you mentioned, we brought in from a panel. We showed them what they were doing. And this just happened 2 weeks ago, so this is very fresh. And the ex-CIO of AIG told me that when they were reading the brief on the way out on the plane, and they said, I was reading it, and it seemed like this is a pipe dream. That's what one of them said. Another one said, yeah, when I was getting ready to come here, I'm like, this is the holy grail of BI that's never been done. And I said, actually, it's better than that. It's not the holy grail of BI. It's what you get after you have that. All the actions you want to take place. All your systems connected, over 1,000 connectors. All your people are in there. All your data's in there. For the first time, it's finally a digitally transformed business. Like, we're the capstone that really facilitates that. So in order to grow faster, I mean, I met with the CFO, and we were demoing our product. And he said, I've been trained for 40 years to not ask these questions. So it's so hard to believe that it's working. I sat down with the CEO. Well, this is a really funny story. I was sitting down, especially since we're here at NASDAQ. I'm at a conference, and I'm talking to this guy named Will Danoff. Anybody know Will Danoff? Okay, I'll explain who he is. He manages $100 billion for Fidelity. So everybody in tech, every CEO in tech is like, Will Danoff, Will Danoff, Will Danoff. We need his money, need his money. And I was at a conference, and I knew Will from before, from my last public company, and he was showing interest in this company. And I was like, hey, Will. And, I was being so earnest. Look at what we do. Look at how awesome this is. Yeah, and I can do thinking in my head, like, who is this lady? Like, what is she doing? And then all of a sudden she goes, hey, Will, move out of the way. And $100 billion Will jumps up out of his seat, runs over to that seat over there, and she slides over. And I'm like, process, Josh. This must be that lady you've read about in Fortune magazine, that Abigail Johnson lady. And sure enough, CEO of Fidelity. And I show her, and she said that same thing. She's like, this really works? Like, this is real data? I'm like, yeah, this is real-time data. Yeah, but does it work for someone at our scale? Like, well, we have a customer with 1 trillion transactions. We have customers that are querying tens of billions of rows of data, sub-second response time. Yeah, I promise it works. And I gave her some references, CEO of Target, and she looks at it, and she's like, okay, let's do this. And she sent off a bunch of missives, and we did a POC, and now we have Abby as a customer who uses it for all of our weekly staff meetings, all of our monthly staff meetings, all our quarterly staff meetings. So now there's no meetings that take place without real-time data before you walk in, while you're in the room, and it just changes the way that people run their businesses.
How do you convince somebody like an Abby Johnson that it's not overwhelming? Because, the idea of having everything all at once can be a little bit overwhelming. That's a lot of time to sift through. You're throwing a lot of patterns, pattern matching, but okay, fine, I have 10,000 other things to do today. I just want you to fix the problem that I don't know I have yet.
I wish I could just demo for everybody, but it's an app that's kind of like Flipboard. So you just flip through it, and it shows which things have areas that are changing. It shows the data that's changed the most. It shows the data that's changed by any kind of threshold that you've asked it to show you. I can go and follow things that you're following. I can go and look at what people are. I can see the report that people are most talking about, most looking at. And then as a CIO, you have governance over all of this because all the data is connected. It's the only place that people go to get their data. So it's been, it's definitely changed that mindset as well. So there's a lot of governance and control that comes for the CIOs by having all this data in here. And it doesn't really seem to be overwhelming because it's every manager can manage it themselves. They can get their own look, so they can favorite certain reports and see the ones that they want to look at. And then you can say, ooh, this one's really important to me. If this changes by one element, I want an alert. If this one, as long as it's within my goal, 10% plus or minus, I don't need to hear about it. And maybe that's employee retention. But your pipeline, if this thing changes by more than 2%, I want an instant alert. I want a text message. I want an in-app alert. I want an email, and I want it to go to all these people as well. So it's just really, it ends up being a way to manage your business, and that's why we have over half our customers have CEOs. Big companies have CEOs that are logging into our product every single day.
So those folks, when you think about what they want, obviously they want the insights, but can you rank for me speed, insights, and security? How would you rank those in terms of what your customers are saying they need from you?
Yeah, so the insights, the speed and the security and everybody being there is what enables the insights. And it's kind of like, I don't know, how many people here have seen that flywheel that Amazon used? The napkin flywheel? Anybody seen that? Okay, there's a couple hands. But it basically was, a flywheel that as we get more assortment, then we'll get more people, then we'll be able to drive the price down, then we'll get more assortment, and the flywheel kind of starts with Amazon. And that's what they drew on the napkin. And then it leads to other things for Amazon. And I think the same thing's true for what value are you going to get when you have a digitally transformed business. And it's when you have your people, they come in when the data gets there. And then the people come in. And then when the data's there and the people, then you're going to connect to more applications. And you're going to get more data. And that brings more people in. And then they want to connect to more applications. And this flywheel starts going. Well, now when all your data's there in real time, then you have the ability to have alerts get sent off. And you have the ability to have alerts that start off business processes. So you get an alert that says, looks like we're going to be low on inventory. Should we order more? Looks like the reps are killing their number. Should we release more headcount instead of waiting until the end of the quarter? Or whatever the business process is that you want to look at, that all becomes available when you have all your data available in real time and you know what it is.
Still haven't heard you mention security.
Well, I said security is one of those things that enables it. So the security, we're compliance as a service, we're security as a service, being able to, when the CIO panel was there, they're like, this is Sarbanes-Oxley compliance as a service. The fact that you can sit back, instead of it being Wild Wild West, and you don't know what people are doing in all these different pockets and what they're downloading to their laptop and looking at, it is finally the CIO has the ability to see all of it and to control those connections. And you can control down by the data element, who gets to see what, or by the report. And then security, for instance, we have bring your own key encryption. We have remote deletion of everything, not just what's in app, but also what's in any cache anywhere, what's in any storage anywhere, what's in any tape storage. So we feel like we're at the very top notch of what CIOs want in terms of bring your own key encryption and security and those sorts of things. So thanks for asking that.
So if you're giving, let's say a CIO wants advice for how they're pitching this to their CEO, what are kind of the best practices for the technical side of the house to be walking over to the chief of the house saying, look, this is why we should be doing this?
Well, I think that's the easiest part. I mean, my experience is like 99%. If I'm talking to a CEO, it's 99% hit rate. The problem lies in if you go to CEO first, then they go to CIO, and CIO's like, I don't know these people.
What's the problem?
But if it's the other way around, you walk in and you tell your CEO, would you like to see any data about the business on your phone, on your iPad? I mean, the CEO of BBVA, one of the largest banks in the world, I was sitting down at dinner with them in Amsterdam, and they were having a big financial conference, and the most important reporter from Financial Times was interviewing him for lunch. And he said, are you really going to be able to transform your business to being a digital business? And he pulls out his iPad, and he said, it's good that Josh is here at lunch with us. He's like, here's Domo. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I want to get my phone out and just start videoing, right? He's like, this is Josh, here's Domo. He pulls out his iPad, goes to his favorite report, and he said, here's my real-time digital transformation of BBVA, right? $50 billion business. And you can see that over the last 2 years, we've gone from 13% of all our transactions are happening digitally in our apps or on people's computers instead of in the branch, 13% 2 years ago. And now you can see today, we're at, as of today, as of a few hours ago, 38.7%. So I'm pretty sure that we'll hit our 39% target that we set for this quarter. I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's real-time data. So
what are the top two reasons then that the CIOs are dragging their feet?
The CEOs are not dragging their feet.
CIOs.
Oh, CIOs. I think for the most part, there's a lack of awareness still. I mean, we kind of went into a hole and said, we've got to make something that's truly innovative. It was very, very difficult to do. It was, my dream, because I had another one, sold it. I was retired. I was like, I'll do another one. Maybe I'll own 90% of the company when I go public this time. Yeah, that wasn't in the cards. It was like $900 million of investment later because it was just so hard. we really built 7 startups in one. I mean, you have to get all of that data, 1,000 different connectors. We spent over $100 million in that. The whole ETL layer is extremely complex, and we wanted to automate that and make as much of that all in line possible. And then the data management, the data engine, then the visualization engine, then all the analytics engines, then the machine learning and the AI engines that we had to put on top. And then we've got an app framework that allows you to come in and build any app. And that's what, for instance, Nike uses. They have an app that every single one of their store managers uses to see how they're doing compared to anybody else at Nike. And all of their employees get to see it too, and they use that to compete against each other. And that's an app that we only charge them $150,000 to sits on top of Domo, because all the data's there, all the people are there, all the systems are there. Creating a visualization is just creating a report, and it's right on their phones. So I think the biggest thing that we have as a challenge is just getting in front of more customers, because we have a lot of Fortune 50 customers, a lot of Fortune 50 CEOs. We just, a lot being like 6 or 7 instead of, 45 of the 50. And that's what we have in front of us over the next several years. And then hopefully you won't have to ask, why is your business so small?
Gotta ask. You're very passionate, and it makes sense, but it's a
fair
relevant question.
It's a very fair question.
Well, Josh James, CEO of Domo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for your time.